Well, welcome to the meeting, and you're all aware that during the pandemic, this is the way we meet. So everybody, I guess, with a small group like this, we don't need to be muted. We can have a small visit here and discuss it all with the other people. And so we won't go into that. We still got a free PSA for Chilliwack residents. So if anybody's interested, contact the two of us. Blue walkers, we usually walk along there, but Alex is still arranging for the walk every Wednesday morning. And last week we walked at the mall. There was one guy that forgot that we were blue walkers.
Yeah.
So he doesn't quite fit in there. But anyway, it's nice to see Tim there. We met at the mall and had a cup of coffee, and it was a good visit we all had there. There's a pro webinar coming on. Peter, I imagine you got the information on that?
Yep. Yeah, I did.
And Lawrence Klotz is an interesting speaker. He's Mark Moyer's talked to him before, but Tulsa Pro, I don't know, that's a fairly new thing, isn't it, Peter? You
Sorry?
know much about Tulsa Pro?
Sorry, Dale, I didn't hear that.
You know much about Tulsa Pro?
Yeah, Klotz is the guy who did intermittent therapy, intermittent hormone treatment. And he's made his mark with that. He's actually a Canadian. He's from Toronto. And
yeah, I know.
Very, very well respected.
When I was diagnosed, he was the only one doing HIFU. And I went online to they have a little questionnaire about it, if you qualify for HIFU. And I got a little suspicious when I filled out the questionnaire and I qualified immediately, and he phoned me personally in about 10 minutes.
Wow.
Said, when can you come in and get it done?
Wow.
So anyway, I think at that time the cost would have been $27,000 or something like that. So I said I'd have to think about it, but it sounds like he does a little bit of HIFU too.
That's just pocket change for you, isn't it, Dale?
Yeah, I guess so. Anyway, this webinar is on Saturday at 9 a.m. So if anybody's interested, I can send you the link and you can sign in and watch it also. Presentation tonight will be with Tim Marshall, moderated by Peter Brown. They'll be talking about Tim's prostate cancer journey, which includes trips to Germany for treatments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make both of you hosts. Now, Tim, I'm trying to make you co-host, but I see if I change the host to Tim, you become the host.
Why don't you just leave it? Can you just leave it the way it is? You're not going anywhere, Dale, huh?
No, that's right. Okay, sure.
Leave it the way it is.
Okay. Well, Tim's got some. You want to share your screen, Tim? Do you? Do you have something to share with us?
Yeah.
Let me introduce Tim properly here. It really is a pleasure and a privilege to be able to ask questions of Tim Marshall, who I consider both a friend and a fellow warrior. Lutetium is part of a new wave of drugs called theranostics, which is an interesting word. It comes from the word therapy and diagnostic. And lutetium is something that is not yet approved by the FDA or Health Canada. It is in clinical trials in North America, but it's pretty well mainstream in Germany and England and India and Australia. And, Tim has been to Germany several times, so we've got some questions, which, Tim was given ahead of time. And so I'll ask the question, Tim, and, we're gonna try and keep this to 35 or so minutes. So if you can keep the answers relatively quick, that would be great. So the first question is,
Tim, I'm going to make you the host, and then you can show your screen if you have something to show us.
Actually, I think I can.
Yeah, that would be good.
I think I can show my
The first
screen.
question is, what made you consider lutetium-177?
Okay, yeah, I don't need to share the screen right away, so I'll just continue on. It was a bit of a process. If I go back into the history of my battle with prostate cancer, I was diagnosed metastatic in October of 2017. And so it was accumulation of a series of treatment decisions, starting back at time of diagnosis. So the treatment options, if you're diagnosed metastatic, are very limited in standard of care in Canada. Basically, you have hormone therapy, and that's about it, unless you participate in a drug trial. So I actually did participate in a drug trial, which was plus or minus Xtandi. Turned out I was on the placebo group, the minus wing. And but on the positive side, I received a lot of scans. And fortunately, I got those scans because as time went on, it turned out that my prostate cancer was really aggressive. It was not your normal, slow-moving disease that of an old man that he's going to die with, not from. So I failed out of the drug trial in the fall of 2018. And unfortunately, it was about 4 weeks prior to them concluding, they concluded the trial early because it was so successful. They were actually able to get results and be able to successfully file for additional use on it. So anyone who was still on it at that point in time was guaranteed drug for the rest of their life. And I missed out on that by 4 weeks. So most people get years out of hormone therapy. I started to decline over at about 6 months, and so we go into here. Here's the good ship cheeky monkey.
Is that your boat?
That's my boat.
Oh man, lovely boat.
So it's we've really enjoyed it. Gonna miss it once it sells, but it's, I guess, not a lot of options. So so if you this is my PSAs over time. So this is during hormone therapy, and it came down moderately low, but not as low as it probably should have. And my PSA never really went skyrocket high. My highest ever was 13 and change, and it actually dropped to about 6 just before I started hormone therapy. So I went on hormone therapy, plus got a biopsy, came back as a Gleason scale 9, went for scans, and that's where I was diagnosed as metastatic. That went on until fall of 2018. It had always been moving up slowly, but in the fall of 2018, you can see it's starting to really move quickly. And it met the definition of aggressive in here. And the definition of aggressive, as far as oncologists explained to me, is a doubling of your PSA over 2 in less than 10 weeks. Mine tripled in 12. So can you see where I started on Xtandi? Pretty obvious, right? This is 1 week after starting on Xtandi.
I never called her.
1 week after starting on Xtandi, and I'm actually back into close to the normal range. And I was actually getting weekly PSAs at that point in time. So it plummeted down nicely. I'm just trying to let Alex into this meeting, and you click on admit him, and it doesn't seem to let him in. So, it dropped down very, very nicely. But as I got into the early part of 2019 in here, I had some more scans done, and even though my PSA was very, very low, I was getting more and more and more metastasis. So when I started off, I had about 6 or 8 metastasis when I was diagnosed. And by this time in March, I was approaching 30. And so like I said, it was very, very aggressive. And we were down to all I could be really offered under standard of care in Canada was chemotherapy. Now, as soon as I was diagnosed, I started reading a lot of scientific and medical journals, and I guess I would caution people to be really, really careful about what you see on the internet. But if you know how to read scientific journals, you can weed out a lot of the junk, and that's in my regular work. I do read, or I am exposed to a lot of scientific journals. In fact, I've even actually once been published. So, when he offered me chemotherapy, one of the papers that I looked at was, I guess I should say is that, I looked at a bunch of papers that were involving the PSMA. The lutetium-177 treatment. And these are some of the reasons why it was so intriguing, because this is a gentleman with a combination of a lot of METs plus a lot of microtumors in addition to. And these microtumors may or may not be lodged and may or may not show up on a CAT scan, but are likely going to be causing problems down the road. And this one is really interesting as well. From February to October, he mostly cleaned off everything that he had. Now, these are when they do these PET scans, they're using a gallium PSMA PET scan, which is similar to the treatment. I'll go into a little bit about it later, but the dark areas that are there are because the saliva glands also contain PSMA. The cancer cells on their surface contain PSMA, and the kidneys are already extracting anything that isn't sticking, so they show up dark as well. So and down into the bladder. So. But when you're looking at cases like this, where they basically have completely cleaned off all of the tumors that this gentleman had, so it was very, very intriguing and to me, and it kept being replicated over and over and over again in various papers that they were having really good success with extension of life, compared to what else was out there if you were metastatic in both bone and soft tissue. And like I said, it also will treat on circulating microtumors. And then there was this one study of about 500 men that showed they were looking at the sequence that would be most advisable to consider the lutetium treatment. And the best results were, they had a lot of treatments. But for those that were naive to chemotherapy, naive to Xofigo, which is another radionucleotide treatment, but for bone only, and that were on Xtandi. So that was where I was at. And with a lot of new tumors showing up on every scan every 12 weeks. So I decided to forego chemo in Canada, and basically it was, Germany, here we come.
Okay, Tim, so that brings me up to the second question. What made you decide on Hamburg, Germany, as opposed to other places in Germany or other places in the world?
Homburg, well, the logistics of getting to Germany are easier than Australia. Great Britain is not quite as anxious to do international patients as they are just their own. In fact, quite a few, according to the German clinic, a lot of Great Britain, before they left the EU, would go there for treatment. Homburg specifically, it was one of the few clinics that offers both actinium-225 along with lutetium-177. And actinium-225 we'll get into a little bit later. It's a little technical, but it's an alpha radiation emitter, and the lutetium-177 is a beta radiation emitter. On top of that, the head of the clinic, Professor Samer Essendon, was co-author or author on quite a number of the papers that I read. And then the clincher is that there was an article published in the Vancouver Sun about a guy from Vancouver Island that had gone to Germany for treatment. And so at enormous prodding from my wife, I phoned him and found out that I had narrowed it down to Homburg, and it turned out that was where he went to. So it kind of was he strongly recommended it, and so it, and gave me some tips on the logistics about getting there, so.
All right, sounds good. So what were some of the logistical challenges, Tim, that you faced in getting to Germany, and do you have any tips for the group?
Okay. So first off, this is just showing where Homburg is located. This is Frankfurt Airport, and this is the town of Homburg. Red line is the rail route, which is the way I used to get there. First of all, you need to be in good enough physical shape to be able to tolerate a 10-hour flight and handle the 10-hour time change. The other thing is that you need to be able to have a PET scan, and that means that with the several scans that you've got, you need to be able to lie on a bed still for 25 minutes or so, and if you've got too much pain to be able to do that, this just isn't going to work for you. Frankfurt Airport is enormous. If you have physical limitations about getting around, you really should make arrangements in advance for a ride across the airport. And Lufthansa in particular has a really great program. They'll meet you at the gate, and they will take you all the way to the train station. If you're in good shape, it takes about 35 minutes of serious hoofing to get to the train station, under the bold assumption you don't get lost. I traveled with a single carry-on because I wanted to be able to be light and nimble. As a matter of fact, I replaced the wheels on the carry-on with skateboard wheels so that they were able to go on more surfaces and had better ball bearings on them so that they would be easy to zip around with. There's 3 airlines that go from Vancouver YVR to Frankfurt: Air Canada, Lufthansa, and Condor Air. And I shopped around for what had the best rates and the best time of day. Once you get to Frankfurt, you have an option basically of taking the train, which is what I did. It's a 2-hour train ride, and you can go directly from Frankfurt Airport. It goes to Mannheim Station, and then you change trains at Mannheim Station and go to Homburg. There is another train route or combination where you switch at Kaiserslautern. But anyway, when you go to book them, you can see what it is. if you book a train ride, make sure that you book from the Frankfurt Flughafen to Homburg. I made the mistake of, they call it the Frankfurt Main Airport. So I tried to go from Frankfurt, Maine to Homburg. And afterwards, I went and checked up on things, and I discovered that Frankfurt Main train station is a good 10-minute, 15-minute train ride from the Frankfurt airport. So I had to book a train ride to and from the Frankfurt airport to be able to complete my journey, because otherwise I was going to be quite a bit of a gap between the two. I used a website called Rome to Rio to book the trains. It was just easy. I found it easy. Sorry about that. That's my phone. Just a sec. I'll just put it on hold. Never mind. My son will grab it, or somebody will. Or they'll just hang up. The Rome to Rio website was a little easier to use than the Deutsche Bahn website was. They'll convert it from euros to Canadian dollars if you want. That should be the last ring, I hope. And if the other problem is that if you don't have a Deutsche Bahn card, it's really, really difficult to get the tickets. So it was easier to be able to print the tickets, I found, using the Rome to Rio website as well. So I know, Peter, when you went to Germany, you bought a Deutsche Bahn card. I had some real smoking deals on the train, and it was going to cost me significantly more. Also, I wasn't over 65, so the Deutsche Bahn card is a lot cheaper if you're over 65 or if you're a university student or younger.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, they look after their seniors there.
Yeah, and so and then in going home, in order to be able to catch the afternoon flights, I made sure I grabbed the 10 a.m. train out of Homburg in the morning. The only way of doing that is to ask the clinic to be the first one on the scanner in the morning on your last morning. They take, it's like a bone scan, but it's just using the radioactivity of your treatment in order to get an image to make sure that it has stuck to the lutetium is stuck to the cancer cells. So I stayed at the Homburg Stad Hotel, which is this one here in Germany. It's at the base of the hill, just outside the university complex, and is about a 15 to 20-minute walk. There's also lots of cabs there if you aren't capable of hoofing up the hill. There is a little restaurant that's attached to it. It is bare bones, but it is very, very close to the clinic, and was 68 euros a night, so that appealed to my Scottish heritage. When you go, don't expect something like the Diamond Center. It is plain on the interior. It took me, on my first trip there, I went up the day before my first appointment, the afternoon before. And it took me a while to find the building, because this little 50 down in the corner here, it's in building 50 on this university campus. And in behind is their great big hospital complex. And it took me a while to find building 50. In fact, I asked a few people that were walking around on the campus that day. None of them knew where building 50 was. So it's, they do not spend their money on flashy stuff. Hopefully they spent a little bit of money on pressure washing, because it looks like it needs it. There I am, really, really happy, because I finally found building 50.
All right. So Tim, if you could you explain to us the process at the university Saarland University Medical Center. What was the process of getting in, and how does the lutetium work?
Okay. I emailed the clinic and asked for a nearby appointment, sort of expecting, you know, maybe not as bad as Canadian standards, but that it would be a little bit of a while. And they emailed back to me and they said, we'll delay it a bit. We've got you booked in 2 weeks from today, which was a little surprising to see how quickly they had me in there. So they told me what to bring, which was majority of my medical records, and I had basically a binder full at that point. And they asked for any scans that I had, and I did have a lot of scans because of the so I went to the release of information, and they'll bring them all on a DVD for you. So when you pull in, and I guess the thing is that I flew in the day before I would go up to the clinic. There are no flights that will get you in to go to the clinic on the same day. I was landing at about 8 o'clock in the morning. I was usually taking about the 11 a.m. train out of the Frankfurt airport, and I would get in around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That was already after they pretty much had started their day. And so the following day, then I would go up. They will find somebody who can speak English to help you with admission. I also used Google Translate on my phone, which helps a lot with some of the forms. If it's your first visit, they'll review your history with you. They want to make sure you understand that this process is considered experimental. And I was going to unshare, but well, I guess you're sharing my screen. You can see me on the top right. They also will ask you why you are not seeking some sort of treatment in your home country. They don't want to step on any toes at all. So I explained to them that I had come to the conclusion that this process was best done early, and they agree. If you are not on Xtandi already, they will put you on Xtandi and they'll charge you for it, because Xtandi and lutetium have a synergistic effect, which kind of means that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, 1 + 1 = 3. So the lutetium actually works better if you're on Xtandi, and the results of Xtandi work better if you are taking a lutetium treatment. So they put a port in your hand, and that will stay in for the duration of your treatment. You're given a room, and shortly after that, you'll get a PSMA gallium PET scan. And this is something that you cannot get locally. It's different from a regular PET scan that could be done in Vancouver. And what they do is they use similar to the treatment. They put gallium, which is a radioactive particle, but used only for imaging, onto what's called a ligand that will stick to the surface of the prostate cancer cell if you are PSMA positive in your cancer, which 90% of men are with prostate cancer. So if it sticks to it, you will glow all over where the PSMA is. Let me just. Well, here's a couple of examples. I'm just going to. The one on the left here is kind of neat. It is the scan is in slices through your entire body. And in this case, this is my April scan. And for example, when I get to the point where it's on my spinal cord, when I first checked in, you can see a couple of tiny little blue dots that are on there. When I first checked in March for my first treatment, this all lit up like a Christmas tree. And so of course, these are the kidneys here, and so they're excreting the gallium, so they glow a little bit as well. And down in my prostate still had live cancer cells, even though I had 20 rounds of treatment on it. And then I had a large lymph node here that was a serious issue. So if we look at, let me just get rid of that image and move this one over. Come on.
Tim, can you click on the PET scan?
Yeah, this is it right here. So
No, it's not showing on our screen. You click on it so it shows big.
that's as big as it goes on. Oh, hang on, my screen sharing is paused. Sorry. Oh, geez. Try it again.
All right, you're back to you.
Okay. Launchpad. Okay, I'm going to go ahead. Oh, hang on.
Should be right on the bottom. Drag your cursor right to the bottom.
Yeah, I clicked on share screen.
Yeah. And then you pick out the picture that you had used. If you got a bunch of windows open.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to go back to the one I had. Here we go. Can you see that now?
There you are. Now you're back.
Okay. So this is again the PSMA PET scan done, and the nice part about this is, like I said, as you can see, you can rotate around, you can see where the tumors are. By the saliva glands also contain PSMA, so they're on the dark side. The kidneys are excreting the gallium PSMA, so they're dark. Prostate still has a bit. But I'd already had one treatment, and several of these bone ones that were really, really dark, the previous treatment, are already starting to fade. They're getting quite pale. So this was just before I started my second treatment. So I'd had one treatment under my belt. Let me just grab the, you didn't see the one that was the slices then? Let me just grab that. This may be pushing my RAM just a little bit. Yeah, unfortunately, I closed it off. That's not the one I want, sorry. Yeah, that one's a huge one. So this is the one that's slices. You can also slice from top of the body down. I mean, we'll only play with this for so long, but you can see that the detail that can be had, especially if fired up onto a large screen, absolutely phenomenal. Lets them measure up and do really nice comparisons as to what. Okay.
You can see, if I can interject here, you can see how vivid and how good these PET scans are as compared to normal CT scans and MRIs. It was described to me once as If you're just using normal scans, x-rays, it's like duck hunting with a blindfold on. But these ones are very, very vivid. They really pinpoint even the smallest tumors.
Wow.
This is the PET scanner. They just lie you down on the bed. Typical German efficiency. You lie down when you go to for a CT scan or whatever. They make you strip down and put hospital gown on and whatnot before you get into it. And there's all the process of and the rigmarole of it. They are turning this machine over at an unbelievable rate. So I walked into the room and she said, put all your metal down on the chair and your phone and stuff. And so I did that. She said, lie down on the table. And then she said, hosen down. So when a young girl asks you to pull your pants down, I guess that's a requirement. But you just leave your clothes on and zoom, zoom, you're done. They pull you back out. You barely have your pants pulled back up again and your stuff back in your pockets. And they are sending the next person in. And the first time I walked down the hallway, they were already looking at my scans and reviewing them to determine how much of a dose. And they also informed me at that point in time that you really don't. Oh, hang on. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay. It says screen sharing is paused here. So you don't know until you get the PSMA PET scan, and they compare it to a regular glucose PET scan. And if all of the tumors glow the same, that means you're a candidate for the drug. If 10% of men do not, their cancer does not have PSMA on the surface of the cancer cell, and so they're once they've had the PET scan, in their case, unfortunately, they're just not a candidate, and they would just be sent home at that point in time. The PET scan, first PET scan is done in the morning. The following morning, they'll do a glucose PET scan on your first trip. If it's one of your subsequent trips, you don't need the glucose PET scan. And then in the afternoon after your glucose PET scan, you will actually receive the treatment. And it's, can you, okay, did it actually advance this time?
No,
Oh,
didn't advance him.
Okay, hang on.
Yeah, you got a picture of the ice packs on there now.
Okay, let's go back a bit. Hang on. Yeah, I forgot about the images being up the side.
I think you want to go back one, Tim, to where you're showing how it works.
Okay. Well, what I was just going through was the treatment process. So the treatment is pretty anticlimactic. It is a combination of a really small bottle and a bottle of saline. Takes about a half-hour drip. In order to protect your saliva glands, they pack you in ice. About every 20 minutes or so, they give you a new ice pack. And so you keep your face really, really cold. In other countries, it can be done as an outpatient treatment, but German regulations, because of it being a radioactive nuclear treatment, that you have to stay overnight the night you have the treatment. I was going to say, the following morning, you will go for, it's like a bone scan, and it's just to see make sure that the drug has circulated through your entire body. And so it's like a bone scan, only you don't get injected with anything. And it pretty much, if everything worked well, it will turn up black head to toe on it because you're covered all over. So the way this works is that if there's, it only sticks to the PSMA, and I'll get into how it works a little bit in a second, but if it doesn't find PSMA to stick to, then you just basically pee it out. So it's the following morning, then you will go for another scan to see that if the drug has adhered to your tumors well and cleared the rest of your system. And at that point in time, you're pretty much free to go, depending on if you got an appointment to see one of the doctors or whatever. So it's a very simple procedure once they finally get to the point of actually administering the drug. And typically there's, depending on your tumor load, my 30 tumors, they called a moderate tumor load, is about 4 to 6 treatments on a 6-week cycle. So there's the port in the hand that it goes into. And you also asked about how does it work. So can you see my pointer? Or is it locked?
Yeah.
That's there.
Yeah.
Okay. So what they do is the surface of these are supposed to be cancer cells. These tan colored cells, and these are supposed to be PSMA molecules on the surface of the cancer, and PSMA just stands for prostate specific membrane antigen. So it's located in the membrane, and it's produced by quite strongly by prostate cancer cells. So they have what's called a ligand, which is another way of saying a bond that is specifically targets the PSMA. So it's a PSMA ligand bound onto the radionucleotide. That then is goes around your floating around after they give you the infusion, and they bind on to these PSMAs in the surface. And when it binds onto the PSMA in the surface, the radioactivity that it puts out over about the next month or so will destroy the genetic material of the cell and leads to cell death. And there's two types of drug that they use there. I mentioned before, lutetium 77 and actinium-225. The beta emitter, which is lutetium, will kill about 30 to 40 cells deep. So it's the big shotgun as a beta emitter. The alpha emitter, the actinium, a standard piece of paper will block alpha radiation. And so it will only go 1 to 2 cells deep. If you have a lot of bone metastasis, which I did, they do like to incorporate some actinium into the treatment so that you do less marrow damage. I think that's all I've got for slides. I'm just going to go back to.
Okay, Tim, side effects other than the effect on the salivary glands, any other side effects that you want to mention?
Yeah, the potential is there for the salivary glands, and I never had it. Had absolutely no impact on my saliva gland. That can be permanent. It's interesting, since I've come back to Canada, I've heard over and over and over again that packing in ice doesn't work, which I kind of find entertaining because these guys have been doing this for 17 years, whereas I'm not sure if anybody in North America has got quite that much experience with it. And so I kind of thought it entertaining that they were questioning how they were doing it, because they seem to be having a lot of good success with it. They've treated probably more gentlemen this year than Canada will with their drug trial that they started across Canada this year. So, and they tell you before you go in for treatment that, again, that it's experimental, that there is a risk of dry mouth, and that the risk can be permanent. The people that were in while I was in, not one of us actually had any issue with the dry mouth. They, like I said, they're very conscientious about the packing with ice. They swap out the ice probably 3 or 4 times during the treatment, or for the first number of hours after the infusion. So even after the infusion is done, they still keep you packed in ice for the next while. You drink lots of water because whatever does not find a PSMA to stick to, you just pee out. So other side effects, you know, the collateral damage from lutetium actinium treatments is so little that, you know, compared to chemotherapy or anything along those lines, the side effects are negligible. My worst side effect was jet lag, dealing with a 10-hour time change and these really long flights to sit through.
Yeah. So Tim, Dale and I know the story here, but for the advantage, for the information of the rest of the group here, what made you discontinue treatment?
Well, I went for 3 treatments. They were actually using the R word. They said they figured that I was on a path for at least for remission, probably for at least 5 years. But on my very first PET scan, where I got the PSMA and the glucose PET scan, they noticed a tumor that did not look right on the imaging. And they said that I should have it looked at right away in Canada. And it was something that they had never seen before out of the tens of thousands of PET scans that they'd done. And that was, it was PSMA positive on the outside and negative on the inside. And it was glucose negative on the outside and positive on the inside. So they assumed that I could go back to Canada and get this thing looked at right away and either removed or something or other. It took 12 weeks and a lot of screaming and hollering just to get a biopsy. And I kept being told that this is, oh, they see this kind of thing all the time. There was nothing to be concerned about. And I just finally wouldn't leave the one fellow's office until he agreed to at least give me a hollow needle biopsy on this thing. It was a real challenge to get in there. This thing is buried deep in close to your femur joint or your hip joint. And it turned out that that tumor that they noticed just before, prior to my first treatment was in the process of differentiating from prostate cancer to small cell prostate cancer. So prostate cancer is under the adenocarcinoma family. Small cell is in neuroendocrine family. Small cell does not produce PSMA or PSA, so their treatment would not be effective on it at all. And it's extremely aggressive. So the standard life expectancy is 3 months without treatment and 18 months with. So once it came back, it was small cell. The manure hit the ventilator pretty darn hard. And BC Cancer had me in for doing radiation and the same chemotherapy treatment that they use for small cell lung. And they did that over the summer and fall of 2019. So I canceled my 4th treatment. They wanted to give me 4, but as it turns out, it was pretty much already in remission. In December 2019, BC Cancer gave me a glucose PET scan in Vancouver, and it did not detect any live prostate cancer cells in where all my tumors had been. And that was comparing to all of the scans that I'd had prior to going to Germany, as well as the scans from Germany, that there was no adenocarcinoma cancer or prostate cancer. But they, even after the radiation and the chemotherapy, the neuroendocrine cancer or the small cell cancer was starting to grow a little bit, and they thought they were picking up a shadow in my right lung as well. So followed up with a series of CT scans over the next number of months, and the shadow on my right lung turned into 2 tumors fairly quickly. It is very aggressive. It spreads rapidly and grows rapidly. So then I went to what is the follow-up. So the original chemotherapy is not the same as prostate cancer chemotherapy. It's it's the same as what you use for small cell lung. And then there is a follow-up different chemotherapy that they will do for small cell lung. So I had that over the course of this summer. And I got to the point where I hit my 4th round, and they discovered that the cancer was growing in spite of the chemotherapy, and the side effects were pretty harsh. It was basically cleaning off my immune system. So we terminated the chemotherapy at that point in time in August. And unfortunately, they have a 1st round and a 2nd round treatment, but they do not have a 3rd round treatment. I could go off label and get one of the immunotherapy drugs. Unfortunately, that is standard of care for small cell lung, but because small cell prostate is so rare, they do not consider it standard of care. So that means you're on the hook for $10,000 every 3 weeks. So in addition to that, looking at the, it's also called targeted radionucleotide therapy. There's several different names of it, but all in all, there is a lot of research showing that this treatment gives an extension of life with very, very small side effects, really, is what it comes down to. Whereas there is, as far as my oncologist could find, and myself as well, doing quite a bit of extension search, we found one patient that had a degree of success using immunotherapy on small cell prostate. And N equals 1 in terms of a paper, it does not really show you anything to get excited about. There's no statistical significance there. It's just interesting, but that's about as far as it goes. So to spend $150,000, $250,000 at this point in time on a total crapshoot, it's quite a bit different than and of course people are going to want to know the bottom line. All in, I was able to get some pretty awesome seat sales. All in, I was around that between $12,000 and $15,000 per treatment, and so the 4 treatments would have run me somewhere in that $48,000, $50,000 range. But I got really, really good value out of the 3 that I had, just from the standpoint, it stopped a very aggressive prostate cancer in its tracks, chased it into remission. On top of that, their imaging technology is so superior to ours that they found the small cell tumor and got me to pursue that. And if I hadn't, by this point in time, I wouldn't be around to making this presentation. So it's and there's just not much point in going back for the fourth treatment because my prostate cancer is not what's going to kill me. The prostate cancer is pretty much gonzoed. You know, if it comes back in 10 years, I'm not going to be around to worry about it because the small cell, my oncologist on his original range gave me till October 2020, is what he thought was the outside time frame for what my survival would be. So all in all, I've had 45 rounds of radiation, 32 rounds of chemo, and 3 rounds of targeted radionucleotide therapy. And that's been my adventure on my prostate cancer journey.
Well, Tim, thank you so much. I think we're just going to open up if there are any questions from anybody. Anybody have any questions?
I do. I'm wondering what's the status of lutetium in Canada now?
Last I heard, they are still doing a treatment trial, which means that everybody who's accepted into it is getting the treatment. So there is no placebo wing. And it's basically to determine safety and efficacy. So it is still the same as before. You have to have gone through 2 rounds of chemotherapy first and failed. And so they're using it to measure the safety of the drug and whether or not it gives an extension of life. So it's you know, the men that are on the trial are pretty far along on the process. Quite honestly, it's what you have to do in order to get the approval of the drug in the first place. I think what they'll do is they will follow it up with additional trials that eventually will show that you should be doing this with Xtandi to get a better result off of the drug. Also that it should be sooner rather than later. You know, the smaller the tumors are in the first place, the more effective it's going to be. In my case, after 20 rounds of radiation, I was still showing live malignant cells in my prostate. And by the time I was done 3 rounds of lutetium, I had 1 round of lutetium and actinium in a cocktail. There was no malignant cells, live malignant cells left in my prostate after that. The efficacy of it is that it's you have a better result prior to having chemo, and definitely a much better result prior to having Xofigo, which is the other one of the other radionucleotide treatments, but it's only for bone, and it has no impact on soft tissue tumors.
If I can add my 2 bits here, the requirement that that you have 2 rounds of chemo and fail them prior to taking the lutetium was a showstopper for me. The other thing with the clinical trial, which is also a great concern to me, was, am I going to be on the arm that receives the drug, or am I going to be on the arm that receives the placebo? You know, and it was those 2 factors that led me to go to Germany as well. Okay, any other questions? Yeah, Alex.
Yep.
Alex, I have a question for you, Tim.
Yep.
It's wonderful that you're sharing all this experience of your journey with us, by the way. In the future, anyone watching this, are there any recommendations about serious injury insurance that somebody could have had that would help them along?
From the treatment? Or injury from the
expensive treatments, yeah.
No, because this is considered experimental. So you are going into it with your eyes open. And trust me, on the first interview, day 1, it was a lengthy interview. And like I said, they're very, very concerned to make sure that you are not they are not trotting on treatment you could get at home. They're avoiding that. They also make very, very sure they're going to flat out ask you how you came up yourself with the decision to have this treatment, and as well as providing all of your medical stuff. So, but because it's considered experimental, and you are going into it knowing that it's experimental, I don't think there's any insurance that you could get from it.
Okay.
The one thing. Yeah, I was going to say, one thing I can say about it is that the clinic that I went to has been doing this on a clinic basis since 2013. They basically turn over probably close to 20 patients a week over that many years. So it's their level of expertise is quite something. They have a very extensive calculation that they go through to determine dose and interval, which if you go on a drug trial, it's going to be a standardized dose and a standardized interval regardless of your body weight, your tumor load, your height, and all this kind of stuff. And they're taking all of these into account from their experience. So,
one last question, Tim. When you're coming back to Canada and you're now facing this single cell carcinoma, was there no relief from insurance for the $10,000 to $12,000 treatment you were facing?
The reimbursement from for that? No.
Yeah, that would not be considered experimental. So was that covered anyway?
It's considered experimental. It's completely outside of standard of care. So insurance won't cover it in terms of, so if something was to happen, it was catastrophic, if you were allergic to something or whatever, I don't think you could get health insurance that would cover that. And you're not going to be reimbursed. It is tax deductible, so you are going to get a portion of it back that way.
Okay.
But yeah, so. And further on to what Peter was saying, I think that so many other men were so concerned about the requirements of the trial that they dumped that trial and went over to a treatment trial. So then everybody who's on the trial knows they are getting the drug, and there is no placebo wing. But you still have the requirement of 2 rounds of chemo.
Right.
So,
thank you.
Okay, so Tim, first of all, I'd like to thank you so much for being so candid. I mean, you truly were, and for all the work that you put into putting those slides together. It's my hope, and I think the hope of our entire club, that we can capture your presentation and retain it for the use of not only our current members, but perhaps future members who might be considering lutetium in the future. And perhaps in a year or two, it's going to be approved by Health Canada, so we don't have to go to places like Germany and Australia to get it.
do you remember that actinium is not even on the horizon? They're not even beginning to look at actinium at this point in time. And at one point in time, a significant chunk of the world's actinium was being produced out of the Trident reactor or accelerator at UBC.
UBC, yeah.
But you can't use it in Canada to do a trial. Yeah.
Yeah, go figure.
Yeah.
Anyway, on behalf of our whole club, Tim, thank you so much, and good luck to you. Good luck to you with selling a boat. Good luck to you with the battles ahead. And I know good luck to Barb, who's probably hovering in the background there somewhere.
She's got her own meeting tonight, so.
Oh, does she?
But in
Okay,
this
Tim,
process,
you want to make me co-host, make me host again?
okay.
Yeah. So stay in touch, Tim.
Yeah. I'm just trying to find where the host thing is. Are you sure?
Okay, you click on my picture.
Yeah.
You'll see 3 dots there. And then one should be making me the
Here we
host.
go. Here we go. Looks like your host again.
Okay, thanks.
The one thing I was going to say though is overall, Barb has been my responsible adult in all of this process. She's the one that's kept all of my notes on all of my treatments. She didn't go with me to Germany. We were trying to do it on as cheap as possible, but it really would be a lot more of a challenging, a lot more of a challenge for me without her than it is with her. So.
There's no doubt she's been a lot of good support for you, Tim, and
Well,
bless her for that. But
yeah,
really,
you're a good gal there, Tim.
I just like to reiterate what Peter said, and thank you very much, both Tim and Peter. I think we got a lot of information here. There's been a couple of questions. I don't know, is there any more questions now at all? If you do think of some questions, if you email them to me or to Tim or Peter, we'll try to get them answered for you. But once again, guys, thank you very much. I really appreciate that, and the best to you, Tim.
So Dale, let me ask you the $64,000 question. Were you able to capture this?
It's been recorded. I guess when I see it, I'll believe that it's recorded.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
You might have to do a bit of editing, but and thanks for putting up with my rambling.
Oh no,
No,
hey,
you were great, Tim.
great job done. Thank you very much, and keep well, everybody. Stay safe, and hopefully one of these days we can have a live meeting.
Yeah. And we'll see you what.
Sure, it was sure nice to see you at the walk the other day, Tim.
Yeah, I couldn't make it this week because even though you were in the mall, I had to go for a Zometa infusion. But next time it rains, I'll see if I can get there again.
Sure. Well, let us know when you come. We'd really like
That'd
to
be
see
great. Thank you,
you. And
Tim.
maybe Peter will even wear a blue shirt.
Yeah, well, I was just walking by when somebody grabbed me and told me to join. No, I'll wear a blue shirt.
I'm not going to let you off easy, Peter.
Yeah.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good
Good night.
night. See you November 5th.
Thank you.
Hi, Dale.
Good night.
Bye.